People think betrayal always arrives with a dramatic confession or a shocking secret. Mine came in the form of a simple document. My name is Lauren, and for 12 years, I helped build my husband's construction company from our kitchen table into a successful business in suburban Colorado. I wasn't the one wearing a hard hat on job sites. I was the one answering customer calls before sunrise, sending invoices after dinner, organizing payroll, updating schedules, managing permits, and calming frustrated clients when projects ran behind. When people complimented the business, my husband Ethan would smile and say, "We make a great team." I believed him. We had been married for 14 years. We didn't have children, but we had dreams. We planned vacations we rarely took because the company always needed us. Every extra dollar went back into the business. I told myself sacrifices today would become security tomorrow. One afternoon, Ethan came home excited. "We finally landed the city contract," he said. I hugged him. "No," he corrected with a grin. "We landed it." That single word we made every late night feel worthwhile, or so I thought. A month later, Ethan mentioned meeting with an attorney. "Just routine paperwork," he said while scrolling through his phone. "What kind of paperwork?" "Business updates." I didn't think much about it. Why would I? I trusted my husband. A few weeks later, our accountant retired. We needed someone new. The new accountant asked us both to come in for an introductory meeting. I remember sitting in a bright office surrounded by framed certificates and shelves full of tax books. The accountant smiled politely. "So, Lauren, what exactly is your ownership percentage?" I laughed. "Half." He looked confused. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "According to these documents, you're not listed as an owner." I stared at him. There must be a mistake. He turned the monitor toward me. There it was, the company registration. Owner, managing member, authorized signatory. Every line carried Ethan's name. Mine wasn't anywhere, not as partner, not as co-owner, not even as a minority shareholder. The room suddenly felt very quiet. I looked at Ethan. He shrugged. It was easier this way. Easier? For taxes. The accountant sensed the tension and excused himself. When the door closed, I whispered, "I've worked beside you every single day. I know. I built this with you. You helped." Helped. One word erased 12 years. I wanted to argue. Instead, I asked one question. "Have I ever signed anything?" "No. Did you ever tell me I wasn't an owner?" "You never asked." Those words stayed with me all afternoon. You never asked. Driving home, I realized something painful. I had trusted conversations instead of documents, promises instead of paperwork, love instead of facts. That night, I barely slept. I replayed every memory, every holiday spent answering business calls, every weekend spent preparing proposals, every family gathering I skipped because payroll had to be finished. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for truth. The next morning, Ethan acted as though nothing had happened. He kissed my forehead. "Don't overthink it." That sentence bothered me more than anything else. I stopped discussing it. Not because I agreed, because I needed information before emotion. During the next week, I quietly began gathering copies of every email, invoice, customer record, calendar, and project plan I had created over the years, not secretly, simply organizing my own work. I also scheduled a consultation with a business attorney. I didn't tell Ethan. For the first time in years, I made a decision without asking permission. The attorney listened carefully. Then she asked a question that changed everything. "Lauren, who owns the client relationships?" "I do." "Who knows the systems?" "I do." "Who manages operations?" "I do." She leaned back. Ownership isn't always the same as value. Those words gave me hope. Maybe I wasn't legally listed. But I wasn't powerless. The attorney advised me not to make emotional decisions. She encouraged me to understand every financial record before speaking again. As I left her office, my phone buzzed. It was Ethan. "Good news," he texted. "I'm meeting investors next week." Investors? I hadn't heard anything about investors. When I got home, I asked casually, "What investors?" "Oh," he said, "I forgot to mention it." "Forgot again. What are you selling?" "Just a percentage of the company." My heart stopped. The company I had spent 12 years building was about to be partially sold without me ever being asked. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about my name missing from the paperwork. It was about whether I would finally speak up or quietly watch my life's work disappear. I barely slept the night after Ethan mentioned the investors, not because I was angry, because I finally understood something I had ignored for years. Silence can protect your peace, but it should never protect someone else's disrespect. The next morning, I didn't confront him. Instead, I went back to the attorney with every document I had gathered: emails, project timelines, contracts I had drafted, customer messages thanking me by name, payroll records I had processed, even calendars showing thousands of hours spent running daily operations. The attorney carefully reviewed everything. Finally, she smiled. "You may not own shares," she said, "but your contributions are well documented. Before any major transition, you have leverage not through shouting, but through facts." That was exactly what I needed. Facts, not arguments. A few days later, Ethan invited me to lunch. "I've got exciting news," he said. "The investors loved the company." I nodded. "That's great. They're sending over the final agreement next week." He expected me to celebrate. Instead, I calmly asked, "Have you told them who actually built the operating systems?" He frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean the scheduling software I created, the client database I organized, the vendor relationships I manage, the procedures I wrote." He looked uncomfortable. "They're buying the company. They're buying a business that depends on work you've always called help." For the first time, he had no quick answer. A week later, the investors requested a meeting with both of us. Apparently, during their due diligence, they had noticed that almost every department relied on processes I personally managed. One of them asked me directly, "Lauren, if ownership changes, will you be staying?" The room became silent. Ethan looked at me, expecting the automatic support I'd always given him. Instead, I answered honestly, "I haven't made that decision." The investors exchanged glances. One of them said, "Your operational knowledge appears critical." It was the first time in years someone acknowledged my value without me having to explain it. After the meeting, Ethan was frustrated. "You embarrassed me." I shook my head. "No," I answered a question. "You could have supported me. I have supported you for 12 years. He looked away. That evening, we had the calmest and hardest conversation of our marriage. I never wanted control, I told him. I wanted partnership. I thought you trusted me. I did. That's why this hurts. He admitted he had always viewed the business as something he started, even though he knew it couldn't have grown without me. I didn't think the paperwork mattered. It mattered because it reflected how you saw me, not as a partner, as help. Over the next month, the investor deal paused. They wanted the ownership structure clarified before moving forward. For the first time, Ethan sat down with attorneys to discuss adding me as an equal partner. Months earlier, I would have accepted immediately. Now I asked for time. Because respect, given only after being challenged, deserves careful consideration. I reviewed every document, every clause, every responsibility. Nothing was signed until everything reflected reality. In the end, I became an official co-owner, not because I demanded it emotionally, but because I insisted on fairness. More importantly, our marriage changed. We started having conversations instead of assumptions. We stopped saying, "Don't worry about it." We started saying, "Let's put it in writing." People often ask whether I regret the years when my name wasn't on the business. The truth is, I regret believing that love automatically guarantees equality. It doesn't. Healthy relationships need trust, but they also need transparency. Today, when another woman tells me she's basically a partner in a family business, I gently ask one question: does the paperwork say the same thing? Because dignity isn't about proving your worth after the fact. It's about making sure your worth is recognized from the beginning. That lesson cost me 12 years, but it gave me the confidence to never confuse loyalty with invisibility again. If this story touched you, please comment and subscribe. I have one question for you. Have you ever realized your contributions weren't being fully recognized until much later? Let me know your answer below.